Gnomes are real. You know what? So are fairies and mermaids and other manifestations like that we see in our fairy tales, in our storybooks. Gnomes are real. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. It's Tricia Carr, your host and your intuitive, your empathic channel. I will also say that I am an animal and nature telepath, and this episode draws upon that experience and that skill. And yes, actually connecting psychically, connecting intuitively, telepathically, channeling, connecting with spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it, energy healing. It is a skill as well as a talent. Now I'm going to dig into something I think is probably a little bit fun, and it falls in the realm of both metaphysics, but also the realm of mysticism. And I love to improve my life and help others to improve their lives by the use of understanding metaphysical philosophy and the art of mysticism. So I'm going to tell you today that gnomes are real. You know what? So are fairies and mermaids and other manifestations like that we see in our fairy tales, in our storybooks. Gnomes are real. And I'll tell you how I experienced my gnome guide, and everyone has these elemental spirit guides. How I first experienced my gnome guide, I didn't know that gnomes were real. I had no inkling. I'd never heard of anyone talk about gnomes as though they were actually real kinds of beings or spirits or entities. I had an experience with a gnome guide spontaneously. I'm pretty sure I didn't even know that fairies were real, honestly. I was in development circles, and I was practicing and developing a skill of animal communication. And so I had an appointment with a person who was a fellow student in a mediumship development class. She had a cat, she had 2 birds, and she also had a tortoise named Maury. Now, some of you may have heard this story before, so I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I communicated with Maury the tortoise, and Maury explained to me how he has had many lives with his human as different kinds of, well, one thing he showed me was actually as a stone, like as this big stone, his human was someone who had this special like place to journal and meditate against the stone that he was. And I'm like, mind blown, didn't know that was a possibility. And then also he showed me almost like a flip picture book of like a salamander and, these different kinds, snake and different kinds of animals who dwell really close to the earth. He showed me this and he explained, yes, this is the way that my soul expresses itself because I have a great passion for the element of earth. Okay, sounds cool. So we're all into the earth, and he was explaining to me different densities, even though I didn't know that word, and talking about how he just really loves that. He loves to manifest as this lower octave second density / first density. So it's like really proximate to the earth and, how the earth element performs and behaves and what it does. And wow, cool. You can learn a lot from a hibernating tortoise. That was the one thing that I discovered. Well, the next morning while I'm meditating, by the way, I was meditating outside against a tree. And as I'm sitting there and my eyes are closed, I'm in my experience, I felt very viscerally an entity walk up, and I felt it to be a certain like small stature. And in my mind's eye, my clairvoyance, I saw this gnome, like a fairy tale book, wearing the suspenders and the red hat and the green breeches and everything. And I was like, cool, it's a gnome, whatever. I just kept getting this resonance, this like peace, this calm, it was something that it was not like a message in language or something I could really translate, as I'm not doing right now. I'm not doing a good job of it. And so I just was getting this kind of frequency, and it was really lovely, and it just felt so beautiful and so peaceful and, well, grounding. Then I did ask if there was a name that I could use between us so that I could recall our connection. And I heard the name Henry, and I saw it spelled in my mind's eye with an I, like the French spelling Henri. And so I'm like, cool, Henry the gnome. Well, then my curiosity was piqued, and I thought, what the heck? I'll take to Google. And so I Googled and found out that indeed metaphysicians and mystics have been connecting with gnomes as well as fairy folk or fae folk, as well as sylphs, undines, salamanders, all of these other kinds of devas, or the overarching entities or beings. They oversee the different elements. And it was actually Paracelsus who kind of coined the system of it being gnomes, undines, sylphs, and salamanders. And if you guys are like, what are you talking about? Those are the other 4 elements. But I'm just focusing on gnomes and the earth element. And that gnomes are the real overarching devas, overseers, the managers, basically, of the earth element. Anyway, let me tell you how you can connect with your gnome guide. First point is, yes, you have a gnome guide. You have a gnome guide who oversees the earth element, and it's sort of like a master guide who works with you your whole life. It is a benevolent energy entity that is working in this creation process with you as your partner. And benevolent, yes, they don't care if they're recognized or not, but they are available if you want to have an open communion with them. They aren't physical. They are composed of 1, 2, or 3 elements. Gnomes are really, insofar as in the nature spirit realm, but a pure gnome, an overarching deva gnome, would be just composed of the element earth. And so they aren't on the same physical visual light spectrum as we are, and our eyes are trained to tune out, all of our physical perceivers are trained to tune out things that are not on the physical light spectrum that we are engaged in, nor the sound spectrum, which is why, step 1, we have to be in our meditation. We have to be in state, self-hypnosis state, whatever it is. So we go into meditation with an open heart, with a calm demeanor, without demand, and as a matter of fact, with a pleasant and unconditional expectation for a positive connection, accepting everything that comes through. So I go into meditation, and I am intending to connect with my gnome guide. I'm pretending I'm you or something. And so I do so with just this pleasant invitation in the heart. And if I'm there meditating and I have the invitation in my heart to meet my gnome guide, and if I'm there and I'm like, there's nothing, you know what the best thing to do is say, perfect, in your energy, perfect. What is the quality of this nothing? My gnome guide is here to serve me benevolently without any credit, without any need. So why is this gnome guide showing me a nothing? What is this nothing? Is it peaceful? Is it a fertile void? Or is it actually a color or a sound or something that I could identify? Say yes to it and lean into it. That's how manifestation happens. That's how fantastical, imaginal, and imaginal doesn't mean fake or bad. Imaginal means imagery, experiences of the creative mind, of the intuitive mind. That's how it happens. We have to be in the affirmation and the allowance, and that allowance has to be of the self. So we have to say yes to the experience that we're having, that it is the one we called in. 2, as we meditate, we want to be in nature. We want to be bringing our awareness, our attention to the element of earth. So if you want to be sitting on the dirt and leaning against the tree the way that I was, do what you can to get proximate to nature, physically, sure, but more importantly, mentally and emotionally. In your spirit, be with nature, and particularly be with the element of earth. So what does earth communicate to you? What do you think of? What do you smell? What is the imagery that pops in when you are thinking of earth, when you're thinking of, maybe it is dirt, maybe it's the smell of the grass because that's a offshoot from the earth. Maybe what is it with stones? Do you have some special grounding crystals that you would love to use? So that's, some other ways you could be inside, or, salt is a mineral. I have a salt lamp here. That's what I'm doing here. You could actually have some salt and put it around you to be able to to grid yourself to channel that earth element. And 3rd, just be in the attitude that is peaceful, that is grounded, that is balanced. See, if we're moving fast, we're moving too slow, and we are kind of stubbornly or willfully doing that and expecting a spirit or an entity or a guide to come and find us there, then we're going to be a little bit left there because we are not actually softening our energy and accepting ourselves. Spirit comes in with exception. Now we have grace and we have so much love available to us, but if we are activating a frequency of rejection of ourself, well, then that's a rejection of everything too. So that's why it clogs our filter and it creates more illusion, because rejecting the self is an illusion. It's not truly possible to reject the self because your soul is creating you right now and you are your soul. All right, guys, I'm going to also post down below a link to a meditation that I created to be able to connect with either an animal or a nature spirit guide. Actually, what you can do is I'm going to post up there also the link to the free mini course on my website about animal communication, how to connect with your own animal. So I have a free mini course and I have a free meditation. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here with me, for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, and most importantly, thank you for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.